Hello there! Lots of you who follow my channel will be familiar with the Become Jehovah's Friend Caleb and Sophia cartoon videos. I have talked about them on my channel before. I don't follow them all that closely. I tend to try and save my rebuttals for when there is something truly distasteful or disturbing. I had the latest cartoon brought to my attention by someone who follows me on Twitter. Thank you very much. And yes, it's worth talking about, shall we say. So without further ado, let's take a look at Become Jehovah's Friend Lesson 32, Be Good in the Ministry.
So you are excited to go out in service. Do you think you are ready? Not so fast. Before you go in the ministry, there's a few things we need to go over. First, we must learn the 3 P's.
The 3 P's?
Yes, preparation, personal appearance, and proper behavior. First, preparation. Preparation is the first pillar of success in the ministry. Every job requires the proper tools. When it comes to tools for preaching, the variety might seem intimidating, but never fear. We have the teaching toolbox. Finding the right tools is easier than ever. Once you have your tools, make sure and practice your presentation before you leave the house. Wouldn't want to be preparing on the doorstep.
So, how cringeworthy. And I just find it fascinating that they're almost trying to persuade Jehovah's Witness children that they should be excited about going on in the preaching work rather than playing. You see Caleb there playing with his toy plane, and oh, wouldn't you like to go in the preaching work? I think if most witness children were honestly asked that question, honestly, the answer would have to be no. It's not fun. Well, it's not fun doing the preaching work when you're an adult, let alone a child, when you just want to be playing and enjoying being a child. But to be dragged around strangers' houses and made to do presentations for something that you don't fully understand yourself yet, I don't think that's enjoyable at all. You can just about be convinced, I guess, that you enjoy it if your parents are suitably devout witnesses, but no, I'm sorry, it's not enjoyable. And it's also interesting how children are asked to prepare and familiarize themselves with all of the items in the teaching toolbox. And what this is a new buzzword for basically Watchtower propaganda. So it's a toolbox, apparently, of different teaching tools that you can use basically to persuade people to become Jehovah's Witnesses. And again, it's a case of, adults would struggle to know exactly what's the optimal book or brochure or leaflet to show in a given situation, but to expect children to know how to do all this, again, when they're not fully aware of what their beliefs are or what the teachings are, they're literally just accepting what's being handed down to them by their parents. It's just crazy.
Now that you are well prepared, it's time to talk about personal appearance. How we look is very important because we represent Jehovah. Getting ready for the ministry, we need to make sure our appearance is saying the right things. Jehovah wants your appearance to be well-arranged and modest. What that means is that we look and smell clean. Our clothes fit well, but not too well. Our hair is done, and we aren't drawing too much attention to ourselves. Looking sharp, my son.
I've said it before on my channel, but it bears repeating. I think you would be hard-pressed to find a Christian denomination that is as obsessed with personal appearance and personal dress and grooming and modest dress as Jehovah's Witnesses. Christianity is supposed to be all about what's inside. and what someone's spirituality is like and what their personal relationship with God is like. But the simple truth is, I'm sorry if you're watching this as a Jehovah's Witness and you don't like hearing it put so plainly, that's not how it is when you're a Jehovah's Witness. When you're a Jehovah's Witness, you think purely in terms of how people appear, what they look like on the surface, to the point where we now have video cartoon propaganda for children telling children how they ought to look. It sort of makes sense to tell children how to dress. All parents, have that duty to make sure their children look presentable when they step out the front door, because if they were left to their own devices, they would almost certainly look like a disaster. But what's ironic is that adults are also given this instruction, and you even hear Caleb being told to wear clothes that fit, but not clothes that fit too well. And that's clearly a nudge towards the recent obsession of Tony Morris when it comes to tight pants. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please type into the YouTube search Tony Morris tight pants. It will all become understandable for you. But it's fascinating that although this advice, this instruction is directed at children, exactly the same fixation, exactly the same rules and regulations are applied to adults, so that adults are effectively infantilized and treated like children and micromanaged, even in such areas as what clothes they're allowed to wear.
Now it's time to talk about proper behavior. Our conduct while in the ministry is another way we can bring praise to Jehovah. So make sure you are on your best behavior. Avoid talking or laughing loudly, playing around, or intruding on anyone's property or privacy. Also, no eating at the door. Remember, when we go door to door, people see us, and good behavior gives a good witness. We would never want to give anyone a reason to find fault with our ministry.
Can I go out and service now?
Yes, looks like you are ready. It's time to put the 3 P's to the test.
Hi, my name's Caleb. What's your name?
Hi, Caleb. My name is...
So again, what you have here is an irony overload. Witnesses are told here that it's for them to give a good impression, to give a good presentation of what Jehovah's Witnesses are all about, so that people will feel motivated to join the religion. No consideration is given to the fact that the organization itself is responsible for being accountable, for being transparent, for having policies that aren't abusive, that don't put people, particularly children, at risk. And yet here witnesses are told, we would never want to give people a reason to find fault with our ministry.
We would never want to give anyone a reason to find fault with our ministry.
Well, why can't the same instructions be heeded by the governing body? If it's all about how outsiders perceive the religion, perceive the organization, if people can't be allowed to find reasonable grievances against the organization, why aren't they doing something about child abuse? Why aren't they making it so that all accusations of child abuse are passed on to the authorities in all cases? No ifs or buts, no calling the branch first. No, the authorities get the phone call. Why can't that be the case? I'm sorry, you simply cannot accuse or suggest that witnesses are culpable for the reputation of the organization when the leadership themselves are doing nothing to make sure that the organization is respectable and has a good reputation and is accountable. And it's also kind of interesting to see this whole issue of behavior on the doorstep being raised to begin with. because as you've seen there, everything is about how things look. So long as you look respectable, so long as your behaviour appears to be above board, that's okay. What happens when you get out of the eyesight of the householder is another matter entirely. For example, one thing that witnesses will do, and this may be a surprise to you if you've never been a Jehovah's Witness, one thing witnesses will do after they've called on you, if you've expressed interest or there's been a conversation where perhaps you've accepted some literature, when witnesses get out of your line of sight, they'll start making notes about the conversation and what was said, and even perhaps personal information about, say, your name, your religious profession, what you do for work, if that was brought up. Basically anything that they can remember about you and about the conversation you had gets noted down on a piece of paper. And yet in this cartoon, they have the cheek to tell witnesses to respect the privacy of householders.
Playing around or intruding on anyone's property or privacy.
It's yet another example, I'm afraid, of Watchtower being disingenuous and misrepresenting what they're all about. One of the reasons why I decided to do this quick rebuttal is to just express how distasteful it is to be putting children in this situation to begin with. Children shouldn't be preaching. Children should be learning, and they should be playing, and they should be enjoying their childhood. Why are you putting children in a situation where they have to explain to an adult what his or her religious beliefs are? The child doesn't know what their religious beliefs are yet. If you think about it, I can't believe we thought this was normal as JWs. But if you think about it, it's an entirely back to front way of doing things. How it should work is that you study a religion, you reach the point where you believe it's the true religion, you get baptized, and then, if you feel like it, you try to convince others to join the religion, in theory. But that's not how it works with Jehovah's Witnesses. With Jehovah's Witnesses, they tell you you have a choice. They tell you that children can decide for themselves whether they get baptized or not. And yet here they are telling all children, well, wouldn't you like to go preaching with mummy and daddy? Well, isn't preaching something they should do after they're baptized? Why are they preaching before they have come to know the religion well? Why are they preaching before they have even formally joined the religion? Why are they telling adults to join a religion that they, in many cases, haven't joined yet? So it just doesn't make sense at all. But in a way, I'm glad that Watchtower's put out this cartoon, because although it will be used to indoctrinate children and make them feel guilty if they're not excited about going preaching, at least, for example, by showing it on my channel, outsiders get to see just how disgraceful and how frankly culty this religion is or is becoming. So those are my thoughts on this latest Caleb and Sophia video. I hope you found them helpful. Please don't forget to subscribe to the John Cedars channel for more videos. And as always, thank you for watching.
Oh, it's alive.